In 2013, Smack Republic opened its doors as part of the Arts on Main Market, which is inside Joburg's urban neighbourhood, the Maboneng Precinct. Today's guest, Carne Reed, is the new owner of the popular brewery. Please welcome Carne to the show. My name is Holger Meyer, and this is BeerWorld. Welcome to the show, Carne. So when did you buy Smack Republic?
Yeah, so we started in 2019.
Okay.
Basically started the purchase of Smack Republic, and then like 2 months before the COVID pandemic hit, we had finalized all that deals and finally fully purchased Smack Republic.
You're very good at timing things then, aren't you?
Yeah, I was like spot on, like two months before COVID kicked in full time, which was like, yay, we've got a brewery, and all the bands started. Voila.
Sorry about that, but it just seems like you're not the only one. I spoke to Apiwa the other day, and her brewery, her licenses and everything were also just granted before COVID, and it was a terrible timing for her and for you, I guess. I think the craft beer community loved Smack Republic, and I think it was Andrew Martin who always went to these festivals, and I think it was very popular in the early days of those festivals. What are you working on?
So, I mean, to be 100% honest with you, I don't come from the brewing background. I don't really have a lot of experience in this sort of market and sector. So I think what we've been doing, with COVID and the bans in between, is we've really just been learning a little bit about the industry.
Okay.
So, for us, it was about getting it back up and running. We didn't want to leave it for too long a period. It was a very good brand. It had a lot of hype. A lot of set fans. When we reopened, we had a lot of those guys coming back to us. Even Andrew said his phone go off the hook. Like, oh, you guys back up again. So, we wanted to get it up and running. And for us, it's kind of just been learning about the industry. And I think once we got a good handle on that, then we'll start getting back into sort of really playing with the microbrewery.
So let's take a step back. So Grant York and David Martin, together with Andrew, owned the brewery, and it was based in Maboneng.
Yeah, that's correct. So it was the I think it was classified as Joburg's first sort of inner city microbrewery, and it was at Arts on Main in Maboneng. That's right.
That's right. Yeah, and your background is also in mining, just like I think Grant and David were also engineers.
Yeah, that's correct. So, so I actually knew them from that industry.
Okay. What is your main occupation or your main business?
So my main business is we do materials handling for the mining industry.
Okay.
So basically bulk materials handling, conveyors, stackers, reclaimers. That's our core business, or my core business. We've been doing that for, I think that's been going since about 2008, so a couple of years already.
Okay, and you walked a little bit of a path with the guys when they had it.
Yeah, so I got to know Grant quite well. We worked together when he was still in the country. So one day we were having a chat, and I found out that he owned Smack Republic. I couldn't believe it. I'd known the brand. I'd tasted it before. Back then, that you could get it at one or two select bottle stores, and there was a local liquors just down the road from me that stocked it, which was pretty cool. So that was pretty cool. And then after that chat, I actually went to go see him that weekend. Visited him at the brewery. We spent a bit of time. We chatted, and I said to him afterwards. I said to him, I want to buy some shares. At the time, he said to me, "No, they want to give it a run and see how far it goes." And that's it. We stayed. We actually became friends. We stayed in contact until such a time that he immigrated, and that was it.
And what made you decide to buy this brewery? Was it on the market, or how did this whole thing transpire?
So I asked Grant a couple of times, if he would be keen on selling. What I really liked about Smack is I don't know, I was just attracted to the brand. It just stood out for me. I was always a big fan of the sort of the city centres and their whole concept in the brewery. Just I liked it. I just loved it. The fact that the beer was pretty good too was a bit of a bonus. And they at the time they weren't too keen on sort of bringing in additional partners or funders or anything like that. And then one day out of the blue, Grant phoned me and he said, "Look, were you serious back then when you asked?" And I said, "Yeah, I was." So he said, "Well, come and have a chat with me." And then I went to go and see him. We went and wasn't at the brewery at the time, but he was in the city centre. I think he was by Anglo. One lunch, I went and sat with him. We had a chat, and he said, "Are you keen to buy it?" And I said, "I am still keen." And he gave me the backstory, explained to me where they were, what the process was going forward. And so I said I was interested, and that's when we kind of started our bit of a due diligence process, and then I eventually ended up buying it.
Okay. Are you a home brewer, or can you brew?
Yeah, so I am a home brewer.
Okay.
I'm not a master brewer or anything like that. I do actually have a qualification by the IBD.
Okay.
But I don't sort of like do the day-to-day brewing or anything like that. That's not really my, I wouldn't say my pet passion or anything like that. I really don't mind it. I do enjoy it. But one of the things that drew me to Smack was the sort of whole creativity side of it. Coming from an engineering background, you got to be careful what sort of color you put on documents. You can't put splashes of color, and clients don't respond to that. It's like a very, very little plain documents, almost like legal contracts. That works well in the engineering space. With the craft brewing sort of businesses, you can experiment, you can play. You can. That's kind of what I really enjoy. So it's for me, it's a bit of I think an outlet on some of the creativity that I want to sort of maybe get out and play around with.
Okay. Other people would call it marketing.
Yeah. Marketing.
Okay. So you had this period of lockdown. Was the brewery still in Maboneng, or had they moved already?
No, so the brewery had moved already. So before I bought Smack Republic, they kind of went into I think a bit of a verbal agreement with Growler at the time.
Okay.
And that's where a lot of the sort of association comes, where Smack has changed hands. So that wasn't really the case. I mean, I took it over from the previous original founders, if you want to call it that. But there was a bit of a verbal agreement for Growler to purchase Smack Republic. They kind of finished up their lease at Arts on Main, and the idea was then to sort of move in with Growler, and the two of them would start that sort of journey together. I can't tell you all the details around that. I know that didn't last very long. Sort of came to an end or something like that. And Growler, I think, closed down. And when Growler closed down, sort of by association, kind of Smack Republic went down as well.
Okay.
And I think by then, Grant had immigrated already, or was about to immigrate. David was out of the country as well. He's out in Zambia these days, and and I think Andrew was sort of left alone with it. Yeah.
Okay. And so, getting into the beer industry or the brewing industry, I think from the outside it probably doesn't look as hard as it is. How did you find that? Sure.
This is one of those times where you use a swear word in your reply. No, it was a very steep learning curve. I did spend a little bit of time with Andrew. We chatted about a couple of things, and at the time I didn't think it would be too difficult. I'd drawn up some financial models and some game plans of how much money we were going to spend and what we were going to do and all that kind of stuff. And it seemed to make pretty good sense, So coming from the engineering background, we're not too bad with Excel, but once you get into it, there's so many finer details that you can't be taught, from basic brewing courses or from, just being on the outside of the industry, like pouring beer, pouring beer at home in your little kegerator is so different to pouring beer for 500 or 600 people that want beer now, and it's hot and it's foaming and you can't get enough ice, and it's like it's a lot of fun, but a hell of a learning curve. I'm not going to lie. So massive learning curve.
Yeah, I kind of feel a little bit of a schadenfreude thinking that you could just walk in and you think you can run a brewery, and you have to admit that you couldn't.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's been fun. I'm not gonna lie, but it's definitely probably a very, very sort of tough and long learning curve versus what you would have originally imagined.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've done a few functions. How did you get onto those functions, and what were they?
So we've got a couple that we do. We just, as we started getting out and we started talking to people, call it networking, we would get the odd lead here and there, and guys were like, hey, we'll come and try this market this weekend, or you want to come and try this. So a lot of it sort of came by word of mouth, and then, when we got to a point where the lockdown started to slow down and we would get out more often, we actually started looking for some regular events and markets. So we don't have, the old tap, and we don't actually have set plans yet of how we're going to get that back up and running. So for now, we do a couple of markets, especially those regular ones are pretty nice.
Yeah.
We do a couple of impromptu things. We do some corporate gigs from time to time. Whatever keeps us out there, gets us back into the pouring of beer and sort of engaging with customers.
Yeah. Okay. Mm. And are you selling any into the trade at all?
We've got one or two select places where we are. So there's one or two select bottle stores that are stocking our product, and we've got one or two restaurants that are stocking our beers. So it's not wow at the moment. It's part of our kind of focus for the second half of this year. Is I think we've got a lot of what we needed to get under control is now being sorted out. The beers have gone through extensive redesigns and testing and so on. So we've reached the point where we're now very happy with them. And, our future plans will now be that we will push the restaurant sort of market in Joburg a little bit more.
Okay. Talk about the brewing a little bit. You said you've got a qualification in brewing, but and you've worked on the recipes. Have you partnered with somebody, or how do you do that?
So we actually spoke to a couple of guys on the recipe side of things. At the moment, the bulk of our recipe redesign has been done by Donnie at Bearded Brew.
Okay.
So I know you had a chat with him the other day.
Yeah.
So he's been quite pivotal in a lot of the recipe development. So we've been doing a lot of testing, a lot of changes, and I think our last beer that we need to now tweak is going in for its big batch next week. So we're doing our limited edition white stout. We've been doing a lot of research, a lot of testing, just to get them sort of nicely tweaked and getting the beer from good to great. That's our aim at the moment.
Mm. And so are you contract brewing your beers then?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
So at the moment, they are being contract manufactured.
Okay. And you haven't got plans, or you don't have realistic plans of an own brewery or a tap room yet?
No, look, we discuss it from time to time, and it is something that we will eventually get sorted out. For us, our once we got into the whole thing and we learned that brewing is and running a microbrewery is not as easy as what everybody thought.
Yeah.
We kind of took a step back and said, well, what do we need to do? And realistically, it came down to we want to clean up the recipes a little bit more. Some of the beers that Smack had were good beers, but they were still very much sort of on that homebrew sort of level, and they needed a little bit of a cleanup, to sort of bring them to the modern way that craft is sitting at the moment. So we've been through that, and our next focus will be just getting a little bit more market penetration, just to get some stabilization out there, get it in a couple of key spots, and once that is sort of flowing again, then we will tackle the whole taproom thing. I mean, to be honest, we really loved the vibe in Joburg. Arts on Main was fantastic, but that's changed a lot since the early days of when Smack was opened up. So, although we would love to sort of go back there, realistically, we've got to understand, well, what is it going to look like in the future now, especially, with COVID sort of slowly trailing behind us. And if that opportunity comes up and we find the right spot and we can sort of really get it to go with the brand, then that'll be on the cards for a new taproom.
Yeah.
But we're not going to rush it too much right now.
Okay. I think that's a good strategy. I think it's interesting for me then that you really actually just bought the brand and the whatever goes with the brand, not so much the brewing business. I mean, that's what it sounds like.
Look, exactly, spot on. I mean, Smack had a good brand, and I mean, I loved not only the brand, but I loved the story behind the different beers, and so that was a very big driving force for me. All of that brewing kit we've still got.
Okay.
Everything from the test kettles, the German systems, we've got all of that stuff. It's in storage at the moment, and it's it's a very pretty brewery, put it that way, and it definitely needs a new home. But yeah, it's not a race to see how quickly we can just slap a tap room together at this point in time. And for us, I think we just got to get the comfortable that as the owners, we now comfortable with the industry. We've learned what we need to learn before we now throw more money behind a tap room, which is more learning curve. Get the first lot out of the way before we tackle the second portion.
Yeah, it's really different businesses. The one is a branding and marketing business, and then you get, I guess, a manufacturing business, and then you get a restaurant business. So it's all little micro businesses on their own.
Exactly that. Yeah, you're spot on. And I mean, if we jump into the whole taproom thing too early and too quickly, I mean, we've barely got a handle on this. We're still learning. Now you've got to learn how to run a restaurant, and so yeah, that's just added complication that I think we'll tackle a little bit later down the line.
Yeah, one of the lessons that Apiwa learned from her setting up her brewery was that she said she had wished that she'd worked on a brand before she'd started the brewery. So she's now very hard at work with her beer brand, and also with a dream of one day maybe owning a brewery again. But it's not the most important thing. It's the brand that's important. And I guess that is different for different people. But I'm also on that page where I would say get the brand going and then you can start your brewery, because there's just so much capacity, I think, brewing capacity in the country that's not being utilized properly.
I'm going to say that there's challenges on both sides. For us, even with contract manufacturing, and it's been a learning curve too. It's very easy to take 100 rand to a guy and say, yeah, please, put some gin in a bottle for me and let's go. And he comes back and you're like, no, this is the wrong color, the wrong shape bottle. And then you're like, oh, we should have said something about that up front. So yeah, there's so much learning that has to happen in an industry. And I think, Apira is right. The brand is very important. But the other thing that a lot of us, I think, get wrong with the marketing is we always sort of associate that with bigger brands already that are well established. And some of the guys will be like, "Yeah, look how well Castle's done or Black Label's done." But you also forget that they haven't been at it for 2 years or 5 years, right? They've been at it for many years. So you always get to a point with the brand where when you've spent enough time and efforts and direction on it, a lot of the traction will eventually come by itself. But you need time. You either need massive amounts of money to get you there quicker, or you need time to get you there, and it's one of those things.
Yeah, and it is that, because if you say you bought the brewery more than 2 years ago, and as an insider, I didn't even know Smack Republic was still around. So
no, you're right, and I mean we've had plans, for very long about getting a lot of this media attention out there and spending some time, telling the public, whether it's now sort of on podcasts and on video blogs ourselves. But time is always a critical factor. And you look again, you're busy with other stuff in the brewery, and you need to do this and you need to do that. So all of these other things, and even some of them being marketing, they kind of just take a bit of a backseat because of time.
So, Carne, if I look in the beer book, there were 4 brands that Smack Republic had.
Yeah, so Smack's actually got, call it 5 core beers.
5 courses.
5 core beers, yeah. So what we've got is we've got a golden ale, which is the Bree Street Bell. We've got a honey and rooibos pale ale, which is the Heelbrow honey. The Braamfontein Brawler was the IPA. We've got the Maboneng Maverick, and that is a Nachi pepper saison. Mm-hmm. And then the Nemesis, Newtown Nemesis, is the vanilla bourbon milk stout. So they all came from 2013 back then. Yeah. I think the Nemesis was brewed around then. The others come from a little bit earlier than that. So those 5 core beers have been around for a while. And then at the moment we've got like the Nut Brown Ale, which is a English style brown ale, which is out at the moment. And then the Doppelganger is our inverse of the Nemesis, which is a white stout.
Okay. When I did the beer book, they had the first 4 beers. So
I think the first 4 beers that smack out was the IPA, the golden ale, the pale ale, and then the saison. And then a little bit later than that, they came out with the Nemesis, which was the vanilla bourbon stout. So Doppelganger is a white stout. So for us, we're basically trying to mimic the Nemesis. So vanilla bourbon milk stout, but then obviously just IPA in color. You want to call it that.
Sounds interesting. You said earlier that you find that people always expect new brands or new beers from the breweries. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of where we are at Smack Republic at the moment, we get a lot of requests from individuals about sort of what beers are you guys brewing next, or what new stuff is out and available. So it's just sort of something I've noticed in the industry. And even with reading a couple of the articles that are out there, we kind of seeing those sort of trends overseas in America. If you're not putting out a new beer on your tap list every week, you're not attracting the crowds anymore. So, a lot of the guys were, just sort of complaining it's getting very tiring to sort of come out with new beers every single week. You got to keep up the trend, otherwise you just can't pull the people anymore.
I see a lot of people doing specialty or non-core beers just to keep it interesting.
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I think it's part and parcel of the craft space, but I also think it, to a lot of extent, it also puts a lot of, sort of undue pressure on the microbreweries, for them to perform all the time. The guys worrying about, his current recipes and tweaking them and sort of getting them and moving the stock before it expires or before it goes off. But now on top of that, he's got to worry about putting out, new fresh beers all the time. It's just something I've noticed.
Carne, it's been very nice to talk to you, and it sounds very exciting, and I'm really glad to hear that the Smack brand has got a new home. I really hope that we can help a little bit in just getting the word out, and that people can look out for you, and that event organizers can get in touch with you and invite you back to the original festivals that Smack was part of in the early days.
Yeah.
Where's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, we've got social media. So most of those social media channels, you can reach out to us on that. We've got our website up at smackrepublic.com. So
Okay.
we can there's online sales there, but there's contact us forms. My details are on there. If you want to give me a call or send me a WhatsApp or even email me, all of that info is on the website, smackrepublic.com.
Okay, perfect. And I look forward to seeing you at one of the big festivals soon.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. So, yeah, we also can't wait. Good stuff. Thanks a lot, Holger. Enjoy the chat.
Thank you for listening to our stories here online. In the show notes, you will also find a link where you can subscribe to become part of our community and be notified when we upload our latest content.